Have you ever just stopped and wondered what sound is? I mean, not just the noise you hear, but what's physically happening? Well, today we're going to make the invisible visible. We're diving deep into the incredible science of sound waves, how they move, what they're made of, and all the amazing ways we've learned to use them. So let's dive in.
Right? It's everywhere, all day, every day, from a pin drop to a jet engine. But what is it fundamentally? That's the big question we're going to unpack together in this explainer.
So, here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with the basic physics, what's actually vibrating. Then, we'll talk about how fast sound travels. After that, we'll explore the whole spectrum of sounds we can, and more interestingly, can't hear. We'll see how simple echoes led to mind-blowing technology, and we'll wrap it all up with a journey into the human ear itself.
All right, first things first, let's get right to the heart of it. What is this invisible force we call sound? Okay, the most important thing to get here is that sound isn't just some abstract idea, it's actual physical energy, and it has to have something to travel through, a medium, like air or water or even a solid wall. That's why in the total vacuum of space, it's completely silent. No medium, no sound. Simple as that. This is a fantastic way to picture how sound moves. Imagine you've got a slinky. When you push one end, you see that little squished up part travel down its length. That's a compression. And the stretched out part that follows, that's a rarefaction. Sound is doing that exact same thing, just with the molecules in the air pushing them together and pulling them apart over and over again.
So these three things you see here, they're basically the DNA of every single sound you've ever heard. Frequency, which is just how close the waves are to each other, gives you the pitch. Think of a high, squeaky violin note, that's a high frequency. And amplitude, that's the height of the wave, tells you how loud it is. Like a deep, booming drum, that's a huge amplitude. It's the physical reality behind everything we hear.
Okay, so we know what sound is, but how fast are these invisible waves actually ripping through the world around us? Let's take a look. Now don't worry, we're not going to get bogged down in heavy math here, because the idea is actually really beautiful and simple. The speed of a sound wave, its velocity, or v, is just its frequency, nu, multiplied by its wavelength, lambda. That's it. How many waves go by per second times how long each wave is. It's this elegant little formula that governs how it all works.
And this makes total sense when you stop and think about it. In a solid, all the particles are jammed right up against each other, so they can pass that vibration along super fast. But in a gas, like the air, they're all spread out, so it's a much slower process. It's exactly why you always see a flash of lightning way before you hear the thunder, right? Light is just moving on a whole different level of fast.
Oh, I love this analogy. It makes these factors so easy to grasp. Imagine sound as a runner. A higher temperature is like giving that runner an energy drink. The air particles are already zipping around, so they pass the sound on faster. But a denser gas, that's like strapping a heavy backpack on our runner. It slows everything down. Heavier gas molecules, even more weight in the backpack. It just works. All right, let's zoom out for a second. Because, the range of sound that we humans can actually hear, it turns out it's just a tiny, tiny little slice of the full sound spectrum that's happening all around us all the time. So check this out. Way down at the bottom, below what we can hear, you've got infrasound. That's the super low rumble of earthquakes, or how elephants talk to each other over miles and miles. Then way up top, there's ultrasound, which bats use to see in the dark. We live right here in the middle, in this audible range. But it's just wild to think about this entire world of sound that's completely silent to us. So, what happens when these sound waves actually hit something, like a wall? Well, they bounce back. And that simple, everyday principle, reflection, has led to some absolutely world-changing technologies. I mean, we've all done this. You shout into a canyon or a big, empty room, and a second later, you hear yourself again. That's an echo. It's just your own sound wave traveling out, hitting a surface, and bouncing all the way back to your ears. That delay you hear, that's the travel time. But here's a cool little detail. For our brains to actually process that bounced back sound as a separate, distinct echo, there needs to be a tiny gap, a delay of at least 1/10 of a second between when we make the sound and when we hear its reflection. And we can translate that time into a real-world distance. At normal room temperature, that 0.1 second delay means you need to be at least 17.2 meters away from a wall to hear a clean echo. If you're any closer, the original sound and its reflection just kind of mush together into what we call reverberation. And this is where it gets absolutely mind-blowing. We took that basic idea of an echo and applied it to sounds we can't even hear. Sonar pings the bottom of the ocean with ultrasound to build these incredibly detailed maps. And sonography? It does the same thing, using those safe, high-frequency waves to literally give us a window inside the human body. We've harnessed the unseen to see the unseeable. It's amazing.
Okay, we've talked about the physics and the tech. For the final piece of the puzzle, let's bring it all home and look at the incredible trick our own bodies pull off, turning a physical wave into the actual sensation of sound.
It's this beautiful, tiny machine. First, as you can see, your outer ear, the part you can see, acts like a funnel, gathering the sound waves. Then they travel down and bam, they hit the eardrum and make it vibrate. Those vibrations get amplified by tiny bones in the middle ear and sent to the inner ear. In a spiral-shaped tube called the cochlea, that physical shaking gets magically turned into electrical signals. Finally, those signals shoot up the auditory nerve to the brain. And it's only then, inside your mind, that it finally becomes music, or a conversation, or the chirping of birds.
So we are right back where we started, with this one sentence. But it should feel completely different now, right? It's not just a definition anymore. It's the whole story. A physical journey through the world, and a biological miracle inside our heads, all captured in a few words.
And that just leaves you wondering, doesn't it? If we can use ultrasound to map the deepest oceans and see inside our own bodies, what other information, what other stories are riding on the waves passing through this room right now, totally unheard? What secrets are still out there, just waiting for us to figure out how to listen?